Hey guys, what is going on? We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Thank y'all all for coming out to season one, episode five of Legends Live podcast. It is Understanding EPDs with Mr. Richard Hood and Mr. Brad Wright. This is a podcast that brings together like-minded, hard-working people from in and around the cattle industry. Today, like every day, we have worked hard to bring you a podcast full of useful information. So, Daniel, what's going on? How you doing? What are things like over in Athens, Texas?
Man, it's a whole lot better now. I got inside and got a little AC going, and I've been out all day long trying to get all these cattle rounded up for Richard Round, make everybody happy, and get ready to head towards Quail Valley. So all the Texas cattle are all now wound up in one spot, and we're ready to head that way tomorrow and enjoy the good social and marketing weekend over there at Quail Valley. It's going to be a fun weekend. It's going to be probably some of the best cattle in the breed, all right there in one spot. So if you miss out, make sure and get on the internet and check them out. Check out the videos in the catalog online, and that's on DV auction, I believe. So other than that, we've been picturing all week, getting all these sell cattle ready. That's going to be coming up in about a week and a half. It's going to be June 24th. So that's the hardest day of the whole year, is getting all those baby dolls pictured, keeping them still, getting a good shot, and all the good fun stuff. So other than that, it's all good. We had a little bit of rain, got a little grass, so we're ready to roll. I guess go ahead and get on these two great people we have coming on here tonight. It's going to be very entertaining.
Yes, sir. Before we get started, we want to wish Mammer, my grandma, a happy birthday. It is her birthday today. Don't want to forget about her. She's how old is she? She is about 29, 30 years old this year, right?
Well, I think she's about 27, 28. She seems like she's really
Okay.
athletic still. So,
Okay. Well, we have an awesome show prepared for y'all today. Mr. Webb Fields will be on with us at some point in this episode to give us our Web from the Field segment. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and introduce our guest of honors and let them introduce themselves and kind of explain how they operate in the cattle industry. So, with that being said, we have Mr. Richard Hood, who is Executive Director of American Cattle Enterprise, ACE. And we also have Mr. Brad Wright, owner of Ranch Hand Analytics. So, with that being said, Mr. Richard Hood, you want to start us off? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. Thanks, Daryl. Happy birthday to your grandma as well. She's a great lady. Um, Richard Hood, for everyone that may not know me, this podcast about EPDs and building around the Santa Gertrudis Association. I was born into the Santa Gertrudis Association 54 years ago, and uh, grew up on a ranch that was totally income dependent on the success of Santa Gertrudis cattle, commercial cattle. Had some brood sows and diversified operation, but built around purebred Santa Gertrudis, and been around this breed a long time. Worked for the association for many years, actually as an employee, as field man. During the time we introduced ultrasound and started collecting data, and we had two machines running, published the magazine at that time, and ran it down the road. Daryl was breaking in at that time, starting his business, and got to know the family really well, and enjoy working with you guys, and watched you. I was there when you were born, Casey, so having this podcast means a lot to me. But a lot of years of experience. Look forward to this podcast and talking and discussing about kind of where the breeds come to today, and with all the tools we have to utilize, and where we've kind of made progress in the last 10 years. That's absolutely incredible. So really look forward to going further into this and discussing it. But thanks again, and looking forward to it.
Hey, we appreciate having you. It's going to be a fun episode full of information. Mr. Brad Wright.
Yes, sir. So I'm Brad Wright with Ranch Hand Analytics. Started out growing up around ranches, and my dad managed purebred operations, and then I went to Texas A&M. I got a master's degree in animal breeding and genetics, and I worked with Richard some in various capacities, from embryo transfer facilities, semen collection, semen marketing, cattle marketing. And in 2014, I kind of went back towards what my passion is: data and records and EPDs and using the data on a day-to-day basis, not just having data, but using data. So started Ranch Hand Analytics in 2014. Now grown that to handling records on over 30,000 cows across the country and working with about 10 different breed associations. I would say Santa Gertrudis is probably still in my client base, probably the second highest representation. And so do a lot of work with Santa Gertrudis. I've worked with the association directly as a consultant since, I think, 2015, reviewing the monthly EPDs and looking for outliers or problems or anything that may jump out. So anybody who's heard me talk before knows I enjoy talking about data and records and EPDs. So looking forward to the discussion, and hopefully we can offer some education and to anything that somebody doesn't know or has a question about anything. I always enjoy visiting about it.
One second here. Okay, with that being said, let's dive into this podcast. We're here to learn and understand EPDs. Mr. Richard, I'll let you take this one first. What are EPDs, and just what's a good explanation of what they are?
Well,
to someone who may not know.
Well, Casey, I'm going to kind of pitch that one to Brad, because he's the educated geneticist, and then I'll go from a layman standpoint, if you don't mind, and take it from there. So I'll just let Brad kind of go in. He's real simplistic on it, even though he's got a great vocabulary. He'll take it down to where everybody can understand it, and then I'll come in on a layman type terms, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So an EPD, of course, it stands for expected progeny difference, and that differences is an important term. An EPD by itself, if you don't know breed average, if you're not comparing two animals to each other, an EPD profile by itself on a single animal really doesn't mean a whole lot. You got to have something to base that on, something to compare it to, because we want to compare one animal to another and decide which one is going to take us in a certain direction. And so the EPDs are displayed in the unit that we measure that trait in. So birth weight, weaning weight, yearling weight is all in pounds. We're looking, typically a lot of our bull customers, they're selling at weaning. That weaning weight EPD is important because it means pounds of weaning. And we want to compare, bull A to bull B and which one's going to add more pounds if that's how I'm selling calves. I'm going to skip milk and come back to it. It gets a little bit more confusing, but scrotal circumference, heifer pregnancy is displayed in percentage of daughters expected to get pregnant the first time. So that's based on a percentage, but it's still comparable. Breedback's the same way. These are two fairly new EPDs in the grand scheme of things to Santa Gertrudis. Heifer preg meaning exactly what it says, the probability that a heifer gets pregnant as a heifer. Breedback is a little bit more in depth. It takes the contemporary group and drops it down to just those heifers that had their first calf on time. What's the likelihood that they breed back? And as many of y'all, anybody watching knows, that's the hardest time in a cow's life to get her pregnant is while she's nursing that first calf. So breed back and heifer pregnancy together can be really good indicator traits of heifers that are going to make you money in the long run. And then we get over to the right-hand side, you've got carcass weight, ribeye, marbling, fat thickness. All of those are our carcass traits measured in pounds for carcass weight. Ribeye is square inches, the same way. If you've ever seen a picture of those ribeyes or the grids, it's square inches of ribeye. Marbling is in percent, is actually in marbling score, excuse me. Some breeds have IMF, and ultrasound IMF is included in the marbling EPD, but the marbling EPD is actually its trait is marbling score. And then you get fat thickness is exactly what you think it would be, inches of fat. And then our indexes, I'm going to skip the milk and then I'll come back to indexes. Milk is also in pounds. It's measured in pounds of weaning weight of daughter's calves. So we're 2 generations away. Some people have asked, how does a bull have a milk EPD? So what we're looking at is how many pounds of weaning weight will his daughters put on those calves due to milking ability. And milk is a little fuzzy because it's 2 generations away. We're trying to separate out what are those pounds due to growth genetics and what are the pounds due to milk. And so then that's where total maternal comes in, is trying to put those back together, is the milk. And anybody who's never seen it, the total maternal EPD, if you ever look at it, it's somewhat of an index itself. It is milk plus half the weaning weight. So weaning weight EPD by the 2 generations away, we're cutting that in half and adding it to milk. And so that's the total pounds of weaning weight that again, looking at a sire, that sire will be contributing to his daughter's calves. So that's where that one gets a little bit confusing because we're 2 generations away, but still very important when we start talking about cow productivity. And then indexes are very commercially focused and intended to make life easier. If you are selling on the rail and keeping replacement females, you need to stick with that balanced index. It's gonna keep you in the middle of the road, not let you veer off too far one way or the other. If your program is focused on retaining replacement females and your customers are probably selling calves at weaning, then that cow-calf index is really strong. And then terminal, just as it shows, if you're buying bulls to go on cows and you don't intend to keep any replacement heifers, your goal is to make as much money as you can hanging those calves on the rail, that terminal index is going to get you in the right spot very efficiently.
Great job, Brad. But from a layman standpoint and just understanding EPDs and going what Brad just said there, and of course, retaining what Brad expelled on, he went over basically every EPD and every index that we utilize today in Santa Gertrudis. There's a lot more. Other breeds have different things. The basics of understanding what is going on and what we're working with is if we can score or measure something and assign a number to it, we can extrapolate a statistic, meaning an EPD. We can extrapolate that into a statistic that it has a breeding value. And when you line those values up and you breed them, then you're breeding for improvement, meaning using the simple one, wean and weight. Wean and weight, we turn in weaning weights and we look at one pasture or one group of cattle and all the sires that are represented out there in that one pasture, just like a show ring. And we look and we figure out which animal, or by measuring those cattle, they were all treated the same. Who won? Meaning top to bottom, you know about ratios and those type of things. Who won? Which sire group had the highest weaning weight in comparison? Now there's some things that go deeper than that because the cow had an influence on that as well. But with that said, those weaning weights are a number and they're adjusted. We adjust those numbers to make them apples to apples to where they all refer back to 205 days. And that's formulated by the day you weaned and to the 205 day. But that number then goes in all of those representation sires in that group. That's why it's very important to grow cattle out in an individual environment, but have different sires represented in that individual environment. And that goes in, and then it's extrapolated, and it says, oh, this bull won the contest in Aniana, Alabama. And he also won a contest in San Angelo, Texas. And you think about that, and you think, and why EPDs are so important, in San Angelo, Texas, his calves come in, or let's say Belen, New Mexico, where or the desert, the high desert out there, where there's no rain. He may have won that with an average wean and weight calf of 450 pounds. Whereas in Aniana, Alabama, where there's abundant rain, 40-inch rainfall annually, he won it with a 700-pound wean and weight average. But he still won it. He still did good, and then that's extrapolated through the Breed Association's EPD database, and basically he's a high weaning bull in whatever environment you put him into. That's why actuals don't work and why EPDs do if data is getting turned in. And but just from a basic layman standpoint, all the things that Brad just went over, each trait, if we assign a number to it or measure it or score it, we can build a statistic out of it. It has to be a numeric. It has to be a number. It can't be a like quality grade, select, choice, prime, standard, select, choice, prime. That doesn't work. We have to have a marbling score, and then we build it off an actual number. So everything's built around a number, and understand that's what's going on. It's the biggest show ring in the world, and it's evaluating how sires do and how the cows do in different environments across the board. And another thing to understand on basic layman terms, as far as we'll get deeper into it, but to think about, well, so if it's a show ring, does that mean the number one wean and weight bull in the breed is the number one bull everybody should be breeding to? No, that is not the case, because they might get too much growth. So EPDs are looked at thresholds to fit your environment. Whatever trait the traits we're looking at, it's for you to better your herd to fit the environment, not only in the production arena, but also marketing into your buyers and who they are, and the improvement of the breed. All of the major breeds that are successful and reputable have tremendous EPD databases and extrapolation. So with that said, I'll let you ask the next question, Casey.
Yes, sir. Okay. I guess one thing we can ask is, with that being said, I know all y'all have a bunch of experience in the goat breed and everything like that, but how has the EPD world changed from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago to today? Dad, I'll kind of let you answer this one first.
Well, when we started all this in 2011, as I'd said before, when we were sitting there one day, and I was like, you know what? These EPDs haven't changed since I was a kid. All of my friends, Angus, Brandis, whatever they had, Herefords, they could tell me all these numbers, and they kept throwing all these highlights out and trying to run me in the ground and this and that. We had the performance, but that's why we sought out and tried to find the 6 best cows in America, take those cattle and find the best bulls and made them up, and then create those EPDs. And we jumped within it took us about 5 years time. We got everything working through them to where our accuracy was a little better. Because your accuracy, Brad will talk about that here in a minute, but the accuracy is very important. To where now we're more leveled off, and we've been working on them a little longer now. So we've sought after weaning weight, and we got the weaning weight to yearling weights, and we pushed it all to where we got the growth. Me and David Harris was talking one day, and we done pushed the growth far enough. Our cattle had plenty of grow, so we backed off the grow a little bit, the growth number, because our cattle were getting a little bigger. So we stopped on that. Then we started leveling out. Then Richard and all of them, we took off into the marbling stage, and then we worked our way into the marbling stage. Now we're working our way into where we got to watch the milk EPD. So all this kind of ties in. You can't single trait select. I'm sure we'll get off on that in a minute, but you can't single trait select. You got to do a whole variation, and the EPDs within your own herd too. So you got to realize that too. They're for use within your own herd, and go from there. Yeah, it's been a tremendous help because now I can go back to my guys and I can show them I have IMF, ribeyes, I have all the EPDs now for weaning weight, yearling weight, and try to push those cattle in the top 10% in every category.
Awesome, Mr. Brad. So how does an EPD from you may be able to explain this better than most people. EPD that you say 10 years ago was a 15 average across the breed, and now it's a 45. To where, how did those numbers change? How does it grow if the population isn't that vastly different?
Well, most of that is just genetic trend, and it shows where the breed is putting selection. I mean, if you continue to select top genetics, and as Daryl references, your accuracy gets higher, you're able to better predict. And wean and weight's an easy example. We'll use it a bunch tonight just because it's easy, but obviously there's a lot of other traits, and Daryl's exactly right about using multiple traits and fitting to your environment, fitting to your marketing goals. But just take something like wean and weight. I mean, that was retain ownership. You look at several decades ago, and sale barns were very prominent as one of the main and for a lot of people the only marketing tool. Well, you strip calves at weaning, you send them. So okay, if I'm going to make more money, I've got to have more pounds at weaning, and so you start pushing that weaning weight. Some people may have started looking at milk, but again, that was a harder number to grab and lower accuracy, and so as you select for more and more growth, you see those numbers over time start to grow. And really, it's a sign that EPDs work. And like Daryl said, sometimes you can go too far. And one of the things that many of you that have seen me speak before, at some point, I always say, hey, the great news is EPDs work. The bad news is EPDs work. And if you single trait select or you don't pay attention to how far you're pushing something, and if you're only selecting top 1%, most of these traits, and in fact, I would say all traits, have a threshold where you've got diminishing returns, and making it bigger, we know that we make cattle too big. They require more maintenance energy. They're harder to breed. They're later maturing, and fertility is the biggest driver of profitability in any herd. And fertility is one of the things that's hardest to grab from EPDs. And so it's lagged, and it's actually been hurt over time, because fertility and longevity, stability, those are traits that have low heritability, means they're harder to select for, and they're greatly improved by crossbreeding. Heterosis affects them greatly, but in a purebred breed, we don't have the luxury of crossbreeding. So we've got to figure out how to make those traits hold while fixing everything else. And so they do change in those genetic trend lines. You can look at marbling over the last probably 5 years, and that's a pretty steep incline on what we've done with marbling. It just shows where the breed's been focused, and again, any given program, you can go too far, but we can move these numbers, move performance really quickly if you put enough pressure on it.
I'm going to handpick a couple of things Daryl said, and highlight a couple of things he said, and a couple of things that Brad said there. Daryl was talking about his own personal program starting in 2011 and where they've come from, and I was there when Daryl and them made that decision. And of course, professionally, nobody showed more cattle than Pittsford Cattle Service, and phenotype means everything. And they didn't give up on phenotype, and they went and selected cows that not only had the EPDs, but also the operations that they were selecting those from had been putting data in the system to build those accuracies, and to where that they actually bred true to what the EPD said. It kills a conversation with someone when there's an animal with a negative EPD when it's assigned to it when it's born by its parents, and it has the highest weaning weight in the whole group individually. And they say, well, this calf, won the contest. It was number one, because culture is what a breed is built around, and we're a competitive breed. Our breed's been showing cattle since it was created, and we're all friends and family, but we go to shows to win. And so when we look at weights and measurements, we always are trying to figure out which one won the contest. And that's not what EPDs are about. EPDs are based across a whole lineage of data being turned in. When you look at that pedigree, if every animal in that pedigree had from birth weight all the way through scanned every measurement that SGBI takes in and puts in their database, if every animal in that 5-generation pedigree had all that turned in and they were involved in contemporary groups, we'll go more into DNA in a minute, that makes it even more accurate, that animal's going to tend to breed truer to what that EPD reflects compared to an animal that has no data and no weights and no measurements taken, or the data hasn't been turned in properly. Now, to get where you need to be, and where when Daryl and others started in 2011, and we started even before that and started pushing that, we had a base set of cows, and we went and found bulls that had that predictability and either AI'd or embryo transfer or naturally bred those bulls to the herds. And in one generation, we saw significant, as the whole, and Daryl will testify and witness to this, he saw significant averages rise when you look at your actuals as basically an audit to see how you've done. And he saw the increases across the board, how the cattle performed, what they did, everything to where he wanted them. And again, what Brad said, threshold, that is a key statement in animal breeding. That is the number one word. That's what we, in animal breeding, there's thresholds, high and low. And you take like yearling weight in Santa Gertrudis. I would want my animals personally, I would want them to be in the top 30% of yearling weight, 20%. That's where I'd kind of want them to be. If they're at 1%, they better be in top 1% for muscle and ribeye, because it's proportionate. If they're top 1% in yearling weight and they're top 30% in ribeye, that tells you a little bit about that animal. It's probably gonna be a flatter sided, bigger, harder doing type animal. So that's why you look at EPDs as the indicator of what, and the predictor of what's going to happen. And then the strength of those EPDs with accuracy is key. And there's now, when we first started, there wasn't a lot of bulls out there that had those 5-generation pedigrees you could go and find semen on, or buy them individually, or any of that kind of stuff. And today there's hundreds across the breed. So many breeders are concentrating on it, and they're turning those weights in. They're turning those measurements in. They're trying to make their contemporary breeds. They're auditing their data extrapolation, and they're looking at bell curves, looking at animals. You don't want to sell off all your bad calves when you're comparing. You want to take them through tests, because if you keep all your good ones, then you get no comparison. So you gotta balance that in profitability and those type things. But where we started and where we are today, I've watched several operations in high heritable traits, which our two highest heritable traits are marbling and ribeye. And I've watched multiple operations take those two high heritable traits, and literally through the work of IVF and embryo transfer, they have basically doubled the marbling and ribeye in these cattle. And we've had animals where we used to go in and scan hundreds of cattle, and they would be fed to 3/10 back fat, and those cattle would average in the 4s. Now those same operations, their cattle average in the 5s, 6s, and 7s, and some even in the 8s. And we've had our first animals scan over 10 in percent IMF. That's great. Is that number 10 IMF animal the greatest animal in the world? No, actually, she's not the highest EPD'd animal in the breed, even though she's the highest scanning animal. She's high, but she's not the highest, that mean in genetic value. So again, to look at the trends, that if you take trend lines that Brad talks about, those high heritable traits are so on a steep incline in this breed. I've never seen any breed move so fast, and that can be accredited to the people and the individuals that have really put the pressure on. With that said, balance is the best. As Brad said, single most important trait of any beef animal is having a calf every year. So fertility is very important, but we've got stereotypes on our cattle, industry stereotypes. And so we felt like we had to make some changes and do some things, and we did that. And the breed is really rock solid with a genetic pool right now that's very stable. And thanks to some breeders that have also, and I'll throw the name out there, King Ranch, the work that they have done on getting us actual carcass data back and putting it into the genetic evaluation has really, really strengthened. In Boss Indicus world, I would say our carcass EPDs are in the top 1 or 2 if they're not number 1, but on actual predictability. And 15 years ago, 20 years ago when I was running around with ultrasound machines, we had no accuracy whatsoever. And today, because of DNA and different things and people concentrating on it, our carcass EPDs are as predictable as any breed out there today.
With that being said, you're talking about auditing and making sure that our EPDs we're taking are effective. Mr. Brad, can you explain DNA testing? Do you have a good hold on that?
Yeah. So there's the DNA revolution, and really, and it started Richard and I, in a previous life were distributors for one of the very first DNA testing companies, and that would have been longer ago than either of us probably care to admit now.
Basically born.
But this thing has evolved, and we knew it went from standalone genetic tests, and we realized that producers, there were some accuracy issues. There were we realized really quick that tests weren't going to validate across all breeds, outside of just a handful of markers. And that was the dream 20 years ago, was we're going to have a DNA test. We can quit collecting all this data. We can quit turning in all this stuff in. We're going to pull the DNA, and we're going to know everything we need to know. And it very quickly realized that was never going to happen. So we're back to the base of the same. Casey, you'd asked earlier about kind of evolution of EPDs. Really, truly, the models haven't changed all that much. But we have figured out a way to take this DNA data and incorporate it into the EPDs, so we increase accuracy, and it's a little bit easier to use. And we do that 2 ways. One is we get the pedigree right. You'd be amazed how many incorrect pedigrees across all breeds, across all probably all species. I mean, I can't tell you how many times. I mean, and Richard and I saw this working in an ET company that somebody bring you a donor that ready to flush. She hadn't been with a bull, nothing, and a higher percentage than you'd care to are pregnant. They don't have a clue how it happened, where she was, what bull got to her. She was open. They were coming to flush her, and all of a sudden she's pregnant. We've got AI versus natural service. We're able to, the technology turn bull. Again, we got to get cows pregnant. We're turning bulls out right behind AI, and we know that gestation lengths vary. And something you thought was an AI was really natural service, or vice versa. ET, somebody pulling a wrong straw of semen. 99% of all the problems are not dishonesty. It's just mistakes that happen. And we've all been there. Now, DNA has also allowed us to embrace that fact and actually run our purebred operations the way a commercial producer does. Most of my customers are using multiple sires in their breeding groups. There's no reason not to. I mean, our goal is to get cows pregnant. Let's cover them with 2 or 3 bulls, 4 bulls. It doesn't matter. Let's turn bulls out, get cows pregnant, and we'll let the DNA sort it out later. So, but since our EPD model is based on a pedigree first, if our pedigree is not right, the rest of it doesn't matter. Okay, because that's our base EPD is a parent average, the average of the sire and average of the dam. If those 2 aren't right, that animal's got no shot of ever being in the right spot. And its progeny, grand progeny, it messes up the whole model. So we've added a ton of accuracy in just getting pedigrees right. And so that's something that I don't ever want to discount. Everybody wants to look at the next shiny dollar, the next big thing, and what can we test for here or there. Number one will always be let's get the pedigree right. I mean, that's the driver of the whole thing.
Well, and with that said, Brad, I talked to an executive director the other day of a very prominent breed, and we were talking about that. And their breed is pretty much everybody is parent verifying now. 100% just about. And when they first started, the industry average, some of the larger breeds, when they first started, they used that 12% of all the registrations turned in with DNA parentage were wrong. 12%. That's what kind of the industry number was out there everybody talked about. And that was nobody trying to cheat. It was just, it wasn't the right bull to the right cow. And it blew their minds away. He told me when they started, it was 30%. And I mean, people are turning in the DNA, so they weren't trying to cheat or anything, but 30% the first year that they had over 70% DNA associated with registration. And I tell you, you turn in all this data in and you're doing all this, even if you don't care about the data, even if you're out there and you're turning in pedigrees like Brad said, and you're trying to say, well, this was a great bull and a grandson of this and all that, and you don't have the pedigree right, you're not getting anywhere. So parent verifying is, I can tell you personally, I work for an outfit now. I ran a marketing company for many years, and we're not buying any animals that aren't parent verified. DNA had not been submitted through the association and been parent verified. We're just not going to do it. And the market will drive that. And you can choose not to parent verify, but if we buy, I guess we might buy one here or there if we had to or whatever, but we're going to test that animal and ourselves. But there's plenty of bulls out there and plenty of cows out there that are being parent verified. And I encourage everybody to turn toward that and demand those cows to be at least parent verified. And then the panel, back to DNA and where that has gone on and brought things. I've been around this breed all my life, and I work for the association and I love Santa Cruz cattle, but I'm going to be brutally honest. I was out there trying to sell a bull that we didn't have any accuracy or any predictability or anything built, to market. And I was going up against breeds of bulls that had predicting elements, and I couldn't compete in the market. And I went and worked with other breeds and learned a lot and worked with other operations and stuff. And Brad was talking about, we jumped on a bandwagon of a DNA testing company, and we were involved with that. And I really targeted Santa Gertrudis to utilize that, trying to help the Santa Cruz breed catch up. And I thought, well, maybe, like Brad said, the test wasn't it. Well, then they started looking at these markers, and associating it with what they call a single step method, which actually looks at the pedigree, and it defines for a certain trait where that animal.
Oh no! Are you back?
Now he's muted.
He muted his microphone.
I'm trying to unmute him. Can't unmute your guest. His mic is unconnected.
You want me to kind of? Oh, is he back?
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah.
He's
I'll
silent.
let you. Go ahead.
Well, I'll pick up if he comes back. We'll let him come back in. But so the next piece of that after parent verification, this is where Richard was going is after parent verification is how do we use those markers? We're up to running now 100,000 markers, and what are we doing with those, and how does that work? Well, early on we figured out that it was going to be hard to gather enough data in every breed to find a meaning behind every marker. Again, that pipe dream that we're going to run this DNA test, know everything we need to know. And we just don't have enough phenotypes, enough data to stack against the markers to find the meaningful markers. So what they went back to the drawing board and said, okay, how can we really incorporate this? And they started to evaluate the traditional EPD model that plugs in relationship between animals. Every time we turn in data, we've got, parent to offspring is a 50% relationship. We're going to ignore inbreeding and some things that can change these for a minute, but you've got, parent offspring, a grandparent to a grand progeny should be about 25%. Two half sibs should be about 25%. Two full sibs would be 50%. But those are pedigree estimates. That's what we expect based on the way that the average gene distribution. And what the single step model allowed us to do was to compare from a genomic level what was the true relationship between those animals. And so, now a grand progeny and grand offspring, instead of 25%, it may be 32%, or it may be 21.5% for that trait, and really plug in that specific relationship. And what that does is, because a lot of times, we've talked about shooting for goals and mating to fix some EPDs at times. I sometimes call it corrective mating. If you've got a low weaning weight cow and you've got a high weaning weight bull, well, let's breed those together and get somewhere in the middle. And, 2 generations down the line, are those progeny, are they more related to that high weaning weight sire or more related to that low weaning weight dam? And, what is the true relationship to those animals? And it allows us to not only tweak the EPDs up or down based on the relationship to other animals in the pedigree, but it also allows us to increase accuracy, because knowing those markers, knowing that relationship, depends on the trait. But, it adds anywhere from 3 to, some traits maybe as high as 10 calves for a certain trait. And we're seeing now where, if you've got an animal with no data, no nothing, you just registered it today and you got no data, and you get pedigree estimate roughly a 0.05 accuracy. With really good contemporary group data, you can get those accuracies, especially for weaning and yearling, up to, and the carcass traits, once you get out there and get those traits collected. Good contemporary groups, I'm going to say 10 head or more, with good distribution and one or more than one sire represented, you can get those accuracies up to 25, maybe 30%. If you've got DNA and no data, where it's about the same, we can get to about 20 to 25%. But when you're combining DNA and data, we can get accuracies on non-parent animals that are pushing 0.45, 0.47. And, that would typically, in the old days, would have taken, a whole calf crop in a big herd, maybe 2 calf crops in a small herd, in order to get that same level of accuracy. So we're pushing the envelope forward and allowing more accurate selection, because remember, most of our bull buyers are buying a non-parent bull. We're selling 18-month-old to maybe 2-year-old yearling bulls, and they've never sired the first calf. So we've got to put everything we can to be as predictable as possible, so that those commercial producers are getting what they think they're getting.
With that said, Brad, when Brad talked a while ago about, we had a test that we got onto that was a DNA test, and we were going to be able to, just by taking a hair sample or blood sample, and be able to predict what an animal could do better, and get a, and not have to have any data turned in. That was a bit of a pipe dream. But with that said, today, with all the work that's being done out there, a small producer, which is a large percentage, the largest percentage of breeders in all breeds, a small producer, if they use AI sires and their cleanup sire possibly comes from an operation that has high accuracies built in, like he's talking about, those 45% and stuff, and then using AI sires that are even higher in accuracy, even though they can't build large contemporary groups, their accuracy is going to be higher because it's relationship breeding. My brother is 6'3", 300 pounds when he graduated high school. Believe it or not, you won't believe it today, but I was 5'9", weighed 140 pounds. I was not in relationship DNA. I was not the same as my brother, and just by phenotype. But with that said, today, with the DNA we have, if everybody will take full DNA panels and utilize that, even if they can't build the large contemporary groups, because I understand for small breeders it's hard to have those large contemporaries, they can still appreciate the genetic improvement as long as they're using genetics that are secure. And that's what most people don't understand. I know everybody's got 5 cows, wants to raise the next great herd sire of the breed, and they can, and there's ways to do that. But with that said, they can, if they're ever going to do that, they're going to have to utilize genetics that come from large contemporary groups and measurements, and that have built that DNA. And again, I go back to King Ranch and what they did. They built a very high accurate set of genetics that a lot of people utilized when we were selected for carcass, and they were carcass oriented, and we were able to take those genetics and implement them into different programs across the country and up those accuracies overnight in our herds, and really turn those herds around. And hey, I mean, it comes down to this too. It's disappointing whenever you see an animal's he's trending down for a certain trait. Santa Cruz breeders, when I worked for the association, they all had 3-ring binders, and when the association would mail their first pedigree to them, when they registered the calf or they bought the animal, they would put that in their 3-ring binder. Many still do that today. Since I've come back to the breed and been working with the breed, I've used that because that stamp has shown me. They went out and bought a bull, and they went out and bought a bull 4 years ago, and they got that pedigree and they put that in the 3-ring binder. Well, on that pedigree, it had his EPDs that he was starting out with. Then they started turning in data, and then lineage and cattle that are kin to them, their data got being put in the system as well. And I'll show up on their place. I don't see it that much anymore, but I would show up on their place, and they bought this bull 4 years ago, and he was top 1% for weaning weight when they bought him. And then they would show me the pedigree, and I said, well, you got this pedigree in 2007, and we're sitting in 2012 right now. Let's look him up on the website. And we'd look him up on the website, and he might be in the top 60% for weaning weight. And they were petrified, horrified. But with that said, data was being turned in and the move. And then a lot of people bought bulls, and they looked at that EPD panel, and they said, oh, well, he was top 50% for weaning weight. And I looked him up on the website, and now he's top 20% because data got turned in. And with DNA, we've been able to up that up. But the big thing is, like Brad said, get them parent verified, and then start using genetics that have multi-generations of performance data and DNA panels secured on them.
Like you said, our breed is very competitive, and one thing I think a lot of us breeders do, especially smaller breeders, they want to make that show heifer, and a lot of our main cash flow is producing show heifers. Dad, how can EPDs still play into somebody's operation that is solely based on producing show animals?
Well, to me, that was another issue we had a long time ago. I watched some of the Angus and the other ones. They had 2 different types of animals. They had their performance EPD animals, then they had their show animals. And I said, I don't know why they have to be different. Why can't they be the same? Why can't you make that and create that animal as you go? If that animal's that good and you're building EPDs, then let's make that animal all one animal. And that's why I always tell people phenotype and genotype and enhance the EPDs. And they're like, what? And I'm like, create that animal as you go and build her. And she's good. Well, if she's really good, why not make her have EPDs as well? So we've been trying to match up phenotype with genotype. And as we do that, try to create that. There's no perfect animal, so you can't do that. But there's always something, one little thing. But as we were building that from 11, as we were working our way through, by 2015, we produced the first national champion bull that had EPDs, that had phenotype, that had genotype, it had everything together. So that's what we were working on. And then now we're bringing the next generation through because you're fresh genetics, you're flipping them fast. That's the fastest way. That's why you're looking at Quail Valley. Everybody's like, oh, they're getting out of business. They're selling out. Oh my gosh, they're having dispersal. Well, no, those 5-year-old and older cattle, if your fresher genetics aren't better, you're screwing up. You're doing the wrong things. You're trying to increase fresher, better genetics in your program the whole time. So they're building up a herd. Now they're giving you an opportunity off of those cows that they built the herd around and sold all the high dollar animals. You can still come in there and they're only 5 years old. That's the problem with dirt bulls and dirt females. They live to about 14, 16 years old. So they're only 5 or 6 years old, guys. They got their whole life in front of them. You can come down there and give 20, 30, 40,000 this weekend for one of those cows that's built up with the EPDs that'll produce your show cattle too, and then go through there and you still got a lot of longevity left. And then back to the show cattle.
Daryl, what year did the Warden win national champion?
That was probably like 17, probably 17,
right.
18.
There's a cow, his dam. She produced him out of Hatchet, which is Hatchet did more for phenotype and show cattle, and what shows wanted is any bull out there. I mean, there's a lot of bulls that have done a lot of great things, and produced the Warden, and he won national champion. 2 years later, that same cow bred to a performance bull and I say performance bull, a bull that had predictable indicators. She was a great phenotype cow. But selected through EPDs. She also produced the highest scanning bull in Santa Cruz breed history that scanned a 9.8.
Okay.
And she in IMF, and she that's the Gulf Tide bull owned by Wiley Ranch today. And then she in the same flush, they were sired by Chosen One. In the same flush, she produced the highest scanning Santa Cruz animal, purebred, registered animal in history, a female that brought, I think she brought $30,000. She scanned over a 10 IMF. You can have both. And you talk about the Angus breed. I don't care what breed you're in, you have to have phenotype, whether you're showing cattle and are doing performance. When you go to sell bulls or sell any animal, they've got to fit a phenotype, especially in the South. We sell a lot of bulls into Florida. Florida has a type of bull that they look for. New Mexico has a type of bull they look for. Texas, you find a wider base of customer. But Florida, pretty much, there's a standard. They still want some bone, foot, good, doing cattle with some loose hide and stuff. And you have to have that built in, as well as you have to have the genetic predictors in place. So whether you're showing cattle or you're just selling them to the public out there for commercial bulls and stuff like that, you have to, phenotype matters. And I say phenotype, understand every measurement you take is a phenotype. All right. But we can look at those. But when we talk phenotype, we're talking about the domesticated eye, the eye of what we took these animals and we've domesticated and what they've educated they're supposed to look like. So, and everybody has their own, but on what they want in an animal. But you have to have phenotype with good genotype, as Daryl said.
Yes, sir. And that's, I think, you can have the same animals you go along and make the marketing, the animal worth more at the same time. You can create it for both markets. And we had a commercial guy from Louisiana not too long ago, and he got out and he said, "I'm here to buy bulls." He said, "But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not here to buy no show bulls." I said, "Okay." So he went around and started looking, and when he left, he left here with 2 of my show bulls. And he said, "I can't believe the first thing I told you was that." But when I looked at the EPDs on them, I looked at their weaning weights, their yearling weights, their scan data. Hell, those were the best bulls you had. And he bought my best bulls. So the commercial people want the best bulls and they'll pay a really good price to them as well if they're good and the quality's good. So that's
And on
why
that point, Daryl, you have 2 types of buyers out there. You have commercial cattlemen and cattle women that is educated on genetic predictors more so than 90% of most purebred breeders, and those buyers really lean on the genotypes, and they know what they're doing, and they have their own personal indexes that they extrapolate. They take these numbers and they extrapolate things. Those are very progressive commercial operations, and those are the for-profit operations out there. And then you have what I call you really have 3 kind of buyers. The second kind of buyer you have out there is what his buyer is telling him that he needs to breed. And so he buys the kind of bull that his buyer tells him he needs to breed. And he's a dangerous guy. That guy is, because he goes and buys that breed of bull instead of buying a program bull, a bull of any breed that has the genetic predictors behind him. He's the most dangerous buyer out there to the industry. And then you have what I call a coffee shop buyer. And a coffee shop buyer is buying what's popular. He's got his 40 acres and his 20 cows, and he's buying a bull, and he's picking the bull he's buying because he's popular. And he strictly buys on that. There are more cow-killing Angus bulls out there, birth weight bulls, than any breed there is, simply because they have a bunch of them. They will kill your cows and breed them to them because of large birth weight and calving difficulties, dystocia. But with that said, the perception of the Angus breed is every Angus bull is low birth weight, and that is so far from the truth. If you don't use genotypes to select the bulls you're breeding as a commercial person, you will hurt yourself. But with that said, as a breed, we have responsibility. As a purebred breed and association, we have a responsibility to make our breed. Marketing is your culture, your program, and the predictability behind your product. That's marketing in the cow business. You can go out and you can tell the story and you can tell the romance and you can do all the stuff you want to. But marketing is looking in the mirror and accepting what is good and what is bad and getting rid of the bad and multiplying the good. That is marketing 101 in a registered cow business. And as a breed, we have to turn that way. And we can be a small breed, but we want to be a small breed with the most predictable genetics in the world. That's what we want to be as a breed. So every breeder has that responsibility and personal accountability, whether small or large, to make their herd accountable and predictable. And with that said, a small breeder is driving a John boat. Your mid-sized breeder is driving a bass boat. A larger breeder is driving a yacht. A large breeder is driving a tanker ship. It is harder for a large breeder to turn his genetic base to predictable animals across the board because it's harder to turn that big ship, that big tanker. The advantage is to the smallest breeder we have out there. He can get his herd cleaned up and changed and predictable overnight. He or she can do it if they'll take the initiative and just do it, and do it for the breed itself. To where we get the coffee shop buyer and the mid-range buyer to buy our bulls. the large guys are going to buy our bulls and put them in their programs if we prove them right. They're going to do it.
That being said, where do we see EPDs going from here? I'll direct this one to Mr. Brad Wright. Future EPDs, is there more EPDs we can build on, or where do we go next?
Well, I think there's some low-hanging fruit. I mean, we touched on fertility. We know that's the profit driver. We've got to find better ways to capture fertility. We know that it is lowly heritable, but that doesn't mean zero. We can still select for it. We can change for it. So I think submitting more DNA, strengthening the accuracy of heifer preg and breed back, maybe using things as we switch to total herd reporting when we're getting more calves turned in, switch to things that don't add data points. So right now, heifer preg and breed back both require breeders to submit pregnancy data. It's not part of their normal operations, and so we're struggling to get that data. If you can be, other total herd reporting breeds use things like age of first calf, because we assume that we're total herd reporting. You're turning all the calves in, so we can capture some fertility traits from numbers that are from data that's already being collected. Everybody's busy, and finding if we start requiring more and more data points, it gets hard to get enough data to build accuracy. So, I think days to calving is one that's been tossed around. The Australians really like that number. It's kind of an all-encompassing number. Whether it's stayability, there's been some reworks on stayability models lately in some other breed associations. I think there's some numbers there that we need to see what fits the Santa Gertrudis breed, what has some heritability behind it. That if it's not heritable, if we take a trait and in our data population it shows to not be heritable, then we don't need to publish that data because we can't change it. So we've got to find, we got to just keep searching that database and finding those. And then as far as other traits outside of fertility, I think feed efficiency is probably low-hanging fruit. We're starting to get some more, growth safe data. We're getting, more and more people collecting that data, and we know how that drives, profit on the ranch is, feed cost is your number one cost. And I think so some more research as it pertains to feed efficiency could be some low-hanging fruit.
I appreciate Brad, and he just got back from Beef Improvement Federation and BIF, and that's basically who kind of we'll talk about auditing the current data that's out there and the systems that are out there, and then looks for the future. That's a great organization that all breed associations belong to, and many of our members belong to, and it's a great association of forward-thinking people. But I really want to emphasize with that, and that's a great question you give, Casey. But we really need to educate our breeders on the basics, and I'm all for looking at those future things. I mean, I really think that everything Brad talked about there, and I'm just an old cowboy out here, but I think maturity is the base of everything. Mature cow weight, of course, is very important. Brad and I talk about inverted EPDs all the time. In Santa Cruz breed, we're finding a lot of cattle out there that are, for weaning weight, they're like top 1%, and yearling weight, they're like top 20%. So you think about that: top 1% weaning weight, top 20% yearling weight. That's probably an animal that's getting there and shutting down and doing what they're supposed to do. Well, when they shut down, they do things like put marbling in the muscle, and they breed, and they, things like early puberty. When you're trying to breed your heifers at 15 months, well, if she cycled 3 times before she's 15 months, she's probably going to AI and get bred. If she's just cycling for the first time in her life when she's 15 months, she's probably not going to get bred on her first cycle and hitting puberty. And so carcass, fertility, all that's built around maturity, feed efficiency, those type of things. Brad and we can spend hours talking about that and cussing and discussing that one. But there are some things that are achievable, but go to the basics. Be sure that your herd, that you're educated enough, and you don't have to be as smart as Brad is. He blows me away. And you don't have to be as smart as Brad is to be an animal breeder. And just get to the basics. Make sure that you're turning in all your measurements as best you can. And then this DNA thing, and then the genetics you're selecting. When you go and you mate a cow and you see a weakness of this animal, genetically, she may not be as weak as you think she is because there's not a lot of data behind her. But if you mate her to a bull that's predictable and is high in that trait, not only will it meet halfway, it'll go beyond, because then her traits, what she suspected that trait, that indicator was not showing her true, it'll elevate, and her calf will be corrected overnight. So just stick to the basics, and that's how you asked about that 40% increase in this breed, and how the trends are all trending up for different things. That's how we're doing it, and that's what every breeder needs to do, is to look at their herd, take their whole herd once a year and run an EPD evaluation on all their herds. Brad can do it for you if you can't do it. He can tell you where your weakness is. When he started his company, he and I went out and we worked with a few operations, and Brad did a complete genetic evaluation of the herds, both small and large. We handpicked some small breeders and some large breeders, and we showed them where their herd is a whole average for every trait. It blew them away. And then they were able, not only then they were able to look at the highs and the lows. And they knew that they wanted to move those high and lows closer to the middle. And then they wanted to get rid of the low end cattle. And I think that is a basic to go. But I am all about the future. And like I say, I'm 54 years old, and I would like to see a lot of things happen, but I'm getting a little long in the tooth. And Casey, that's where guys like you are going to have to pick this up. Your dad and I are getting tired, and where guys like you are going to have to pick it up. And Brad's still got a lot to go in him. But I really think maturity measurements are where it lies today, and that covers a lot. That covers both carcass and, the most important, fertility. I think that's a very important thing to look at.
Okay, before we move on and start talking about the Quail Valley sale, is there any other thing on EPDs anybody would like to add?
Probably the only thing that we haven't hit on, and I know Richard knows, Daryl knows, I can talk about this for days, but Richard's talked about, what it takes to get an EPD and the performance data and good contemporary groups. And that's a big focus of my business is gathering that data and making sure that we're getting the right cattle in the right contemporary group. Not only, making it as big as we can, but not being afraid to chop it if there are differences. I mean, if you've got the example I always use, you've got 5 heifers and 2 of them you've been bringing up during the day to the show barn and feeding extra. When you wean them, are they bigger because of genetics? Are they bigger because they had extra feed? And so that's what our contemporary groups do, is isolate environmental differences so that we can do the best we can to predict what amount of differences due to genetics versus due to environment. And so we've got to compare like to like, bulls to bull. There's some hard code things. Some of you may not realize, bulls are separate contemporary group. ET calves are a separate group from the AI and natural service calves. There's some hard rules that we try to do to try to isolate what is due to genetic difference versus environmental difference. And so it's really important to think about that and know your pastures, know your grasses, know your rainfall. And, if you've got a lease place 20 miles down the road, those calves probably aren't in the same contemporary group as the calves raised at home. And so it's just really important to think about what you're comparing. Are the differences that you're seeing due to genetics, or are they due to environment? If they're due to environment, we need to make sure that you turn those calves in separate contemporary groups. And within that contemporary group, make sure that you've got multiple sires represented. There was a guy many years ago bought a bull. It ended up being a really good bull. It took a long time to figure it out. We thought he was decent. He's one of those bulls that we would have called mid-tier at the time, 8th, 9th bull in the ring, but pretty nice bull. Goes to a place, it was in Tennessee or South Carolina. I don't remember where that bull went. But anyway, it was a 40-head guy, and he was AIing to him and cleaning up with the bull. And for 5 years, every year, and that was back when we did twice a year EPD runs. It was before once a month, and twice a year he'd call. I keep turning in calves. My calves are better than this bull, and this bull, and my EPDs aren't moving. That's well, have you started AIing yet? Well, I'm AIing to my own bull. I paid X number of dollars for him. I'm going to use him. And for 5 years, wouldn't do it. It was the only calf. Every calf on the place for 5 years was sired by this bull, and he could not figure out why his EPDs wouldn't move. And he finally got tired of me telling him to AI, and so we handpicked 2 or 3 AI or 1 or 2 AI sires. And I said, you don't have to use much. Use 5 straws of 2 different bulls. Use them in your contemporary group, and use your bull everywhere else. And in 2 years' time of doing that, those bulls' numbers started to prove everything he'd been saying. So the point is the EPDs work, but you got to prove it. They're all a means of comparison. And if every calf on the place is sired by the same bull, there's no comparison. You're learning a little bit about your cows. You're learning nothing about your bull. So make sure you're setting up good test groups, good contemporary groups. If you just bought a brand new, high dollar bull, make sure you're AI into a proven sire to set a benchmark in your contemporary groups and prove out the young, unproven bull.
And with that said, Casey, you showed a lot. When you want a class of 70 head compared to a class of 2, which one did you appreciate more? And everybody's got to think that way. Is the pasture, and this breed, there's a lot of people that show. The pasture and your operation is the biggest show ring you could ever set up to see how your genetics are working. And you have to set it up that way, and you have to think that way. I'm going to talk a little about Daryl. Daryl talks about 2011. I was helping him a little bit, and your dad's a very progressive thinker, and he had a set of bull calves born that were really good, and he had them all out in the pasture, and I went up and saw them, and we talked about this bull being really good and this one being really good and all that. And so he weaned them, and he turned all the weaning weights in. All those animals were in a contemporary group. They were all treated the same from birth to weaning. And then that was like in summertime, like July or August. And then I don't go see the bulls anymore. And we roll around to January, and I'm at the Fort Worth Stock Show. And the 2 very best bulls that Daryl had, he had pulled them out of that group, and he was halter breaking them, and he halter broke them, and he took them to the Fort Worth Stock Show. And they weren't ready yet to scan. They were just getting ready to be scanned, but he'd been treating them different. And that was a day that Daryl said, "Oh," and the bells and whistles went off in his head. I said, "You've got to pull those 2 bulls out of their contemporary group." Now, the weaning weight still stayed in there, but he had to pull those 2 bulls out of that contemporary. Now, that didn't hurt them necessarily too bad individually, because they went into single contemporary groups of their own. But you have to pull those bulls out because you treated them differently, either negatively or positively. And it's okay. People do that all the time. It's nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to pull. When you sell an animal, they get pulled out of their contemporary group. So if they're a young calf on the side of a weaned age calf on the side of a cow, they go to a single contemporary group to whoever buys them on their yearling weight measurements. If you get an animal ready for a sale, you pull those animals out and you put them on feed, and all the cattle are out there in the pastures, and they're running on the pastures and maybe on a little creek feed or whatever, but you've got them up on show feed, getting them ready for a sale, and then you sell them and you offered everybody to take them back and keep them in the contemporary. You violated the contemporary because you pulled those animals out and treated them different. So you might as well let those people go ahead and take them. Now, you could keep them and get their yearling weight for them and their scan data individually, but you got to be responsible, and you got to understand the contemporary stays together all the way. Now, you can put contemporaries back together. Brad could talk daylight to dark on that, on some things that breed associations have accepted. But with that said, the basic concept is all animals treated equal. It's a show. It's a show is what it is. It's the biggest show you'll ever participate in. And one bad apple ruins the data set. if you do something wrong, not knowing it, you violated that data set somewhat, and because you're trying to find the animals that are treated the same and perform how they perform all the way through that, and but this breed is doing that, and it's very exciting to see the genetic progress, and we're being accepted. 5 of the 8 largest ranches in the United States today utilize Santa Cruz genetics in their breed plan. And that's not because they're necessarily, and don't take this the wrong way, that's not necessarily because they're popular. It's because they're a great composite animal that fit an environment, that there is a gene pool building of predictable traits. And it's very encouraging to see those large operations, whether you're selling to them or not. It's very encouraging them to see and take the step to believe in the predictability of Santa Cruz genetics and the composite that Clayburgh and Armstrong built, that they built the greatest cow, in my opinion, composite cow, and stabilized it in the southern United States, and maybe should be the southern hemisphere, but it's not. But they're very satisfied with what they're seeing. They're using it in their breeding rotaries, and they're appreciating hybrid vigor crossing with other breeds, and they're able to keep the most valuable thing is environmental adaptability, meaning that these cattle will work in harsh environments. So the Santa Cruz breed's never been in a better place if everybody will just stay steady, and then the ones that aren't come on board.
Agreed.
So, Mr. Richard, you want to kind of tell everybody about this Coal Valley Farm sale? This happened in June 10th and 11th?
Yeah, well, everybody knows Ricky and Angie Cleveland and their family, and Ricky was in the deer business, and he understands turning generations, as Daryl talked about. And the deer business, I didn't know this, but there's 6 different traits that are involved in selecting on horns. I thought you just selected on horns, but Ricky's educated me on that. But with that said, most of their deer were dead by the time they were 6, and they had to reproduce themselves or be better. And these bucks, growing that Boone and Crockett score. When I was a kid growing up, I mean, a 150 class deer was unheard of, and now we're talking 400s and 500s and whitetail, and Ricky really understood that. Well, he got out of the deer business and got in the cattle business, and with that said, that disciplined mind in animal breeding came along with that, and he got into the show business, was very successful in that in a short period of time, but he got to learning a little bit about these genetic tools we have, and boy, he bid hard and started turning his operation, his purebred Santa Cruz operation, that way, and really made some really the old adage that your cows are not, you can't flush a cow till she's 10. Ricky flushes heifers as soon as they'll give oocytes. And with that said, he takes that philosophy, and he's done a lot of great things. And we get these cows that are 4, 5, and 6 years old, and they're not totally proven, but he's captured those genetics, and he's going to go on and prove those cows for you. And you can come and buy those cows as a small breeder, as we talk about those accuracies, and they're going to have 20, 30, 40 calves, more than a natural service cow will, by exponential numbers, will ever have in their lives. And he's going to take them all the way through their course. And if you're a good genetic predictor, you can come in and buy these cows, as we say, mature cow herd dispersal, as Daryl talked about, and you can buy these cows that are predictable and that are going to get more predictable. And you might end up, by buying one of these cows, you might end up having the number 1 cow in the breed. and that everybody wants. And with that said, we're going to sell a couple of bulls. The bull of the year, they implemented a award on performance and AI, and the bull of the year, chosen one. I mean, he's a bull when you talk about accuracy, he's building. He's already got 200 and something calves in the registry, and only 13 breeders have access to him. They're going to sell 100% of chosen one here this Friday night, and Data Driven, another bull that Ricky acquired, that he's proven has sold over $100,000 in heifers alone. Great heifer producing bull out of the great Catalyst bull that Straight Ranch has. We're going to sell that Data Driven 100%. And it's not that these bulls are used up, they're just getting started. The chosen one, he's going to allow you to, 100%, you're going to have 100% marketing opportunities in that bull. The breed needs to breed those bulls. They're just getting started. These cows are that way. With that said, when I went to work for this outfit, the number one thing Ricky and Angie pride themselves on is inclusion. They want everyone to be included. And we're selling some Brangus cattle too. They're in the Brangus business. But I think we've got 31 consigners that are consigning to this June sale. We started this sale 4 years ago, and Daryl and Brad will witness to it. It is the premier sale, in my opinion, of these two breeds. And a lot of people gather on Friday night. We're going to sell those mature cows, and both Santa Gertrudis and Brangus, and then and those two bulls. And then on Saturday, it's the Elite Invitational Sale, and breeders from all across the United States. And anybody that's out there that's listening, you're invited. There's an open invitation if you raise Santa Gertrudis cattle to consign to this sale. They just have to be elite, and they can be elite show cattle. That's fine, but they have to be elite, and they have to be able to be the best of the best. And that's what we kind of tell people: bring your best wares. That sets your value of what your cattle are worth at home and across other sales, and it allows everybody to come together, showcase their best genetics, and it's just been so accepted. And great food, great entertainment. We're going to start at Friday. The cattle will be pinned up by Thursday afternoon, and we're going to start at 2:30 on Friday. It'll be broadcast live on dvauction.com. If you don't have a catalog, go to acesantagertrudis.com, and you'll go to the Quail Valley sale page and click on the catalog. The videos are up. They're separated out by each segment of the sale. The mature cows are segmented out on a reel, and you can watch the videos of those. The elite heifers are videoed. Missing a few. I think we still have to have 8. We have to have 8 videos reshot here Thursday. But great opportunity if you're not in the deal to right now to buy cattle. That's fine too. We want you to be with us. If not, tune in, like I say, at dvauction.com and look at these cattle and look at the catalog and kind of look at where your herd is today. And look, this gives everybody a chance to look at where their herd is and everyone else's is. So really exciting time for the breed. Really excited about being involved with this breed. Like I say, I was born in this breed and worked for this breed. Outside of the breed, they call me Gert Boy, and I've never been so excited about the breed, where it is, and the chance it has to progress and do good. And thank you, Casey, and thank you, Daryl, and thank you, Brad, but thank you, Casey, and thank you, Daryl, for this podcast. And if we shed any light at all on anything, if I can ever help anyone, most of you know me, just reach out, call me. I'll help you in any way I can. Brad has a service business. He helps more small breeders than he does large breeders. He does just hourly work for you and helps you. I encourage you to do those herd evaluations, but come be with us this weekend. And we got a cow in the Brangus breed that we're selling. That's, I think, one of the top cows in the breed. We've got 2 cows that mature cows. If you in predictability and money generation and just having good calves every year, they are, like Daryl said, you can buy them and spend this money that you would buy 50 cows, and your return is going to come quicker on those type cows. So exciting lineup. Thank you to everybody that's consigned to this sale, and I hope to see everybody here this weekend.
Awesome, Dad. Anything?
Noticed everybody, if you get a chance, make sure and look at those videos, those pictures, and just study those EPDs after what Brad and Richard's talked to you about tonight. There's never a dumb question. Always ask. If you don't know, those guys will be glad to help you, or come find me, and I will walk you through it and see what your animals. If there's a certain bull we need to figure out to match to your females, we'll do that as well. So that's every animal's different.
Turn to lot 101, if you don't mind. You pull that cow up right there. Can you move it?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Okay.
All right, it's cow at the top. That's the 1524 cow. That cow sold at TriStar as a first calf heifer. It was a split, and sold from Harris River Bend, and her bull calf sold for $20,000 to Robert Silva, and that bull's personal herd number was 190E, and his name is Harris 190E. And Robert then turned around, moved to Costa Rica, and he sold him in Houston for $25,000 after he grew him out to Kelly Vesper. And Vesper Ranches owns, and Daryl had a lot to do with that. And he has grown to be one of the top bulls in the breed, AI sires in the breed. Not only is he top in carcass, but maternal traits and fertility traits. He hits all the indicators, and we sell lots of semen, and a lot of people use 190E. If you look at that cow, she's got a 22 milk. Daryl talked about. We bred this carcass for so long, and some things that, and Brad talked about, well, the accuracy and how hard it is. This cow alone, and she's not a hard doing cow. Sometimes your milk cows can become hard doing because they give everything to their calf. She's not hard doing, and she's at 23 today after this last evaluation, after this catalog ran. You breed her to a -5 bull, she automatically moves the progeny. She moves the progeny from a lot of these bulls are in the top 95% of the breed. The progeny of the calves will hold the carcass. She'll hold the carcass. As I said, 190E is one of the top carcass bulls in the breed, but she moves that milk to the top 10% at least. And that's pretty exciting to find a cow like that. She's balanced across the board. And then you don't want a single trait select. She is extreme in one trait, and she is a donor cow. So just for an old cowboy like me, that wants to make some change pretty quick, because I'm, like I say, getting a little long in the tooth. This cow, Briggs ended up buying her that day, and they have several calves in the pipeline today, and we're going to sell an own daughter over here out of Chosen One that's fantastic. Briggs is selling in this sale. That's an own daughter of hers. But this is a cow that comes along once in a moon, and you can take her on phenotype, as Daryl talked about. She's perfect in phenotype. There's no throwaways. All of her ET babies. She's 7 years old. She's in the prime of her life. She gives a lot of oocytes. You can take any bull and breed her and make that bull famous with a cow like this and the progeny. She's got a huge potential. There's another cow in the sale, lot 130, that suits that as well. There's a lot of these elite cattle that are coming in that are phenomenal. Chosen One, Nitro, different bulls out there that are being used that are just fantastic on phenotype. They're young cattle, but there's a cow right there that you say small breeder. I want to talk about a small breeder. Small breeders could go together and buy a cow like that. And at the end of the day, because IVF collection is so affordable today, you could go together and buy a cow like that. And several small breeders have done it and afforded a cow that, they never thought they could touch. And they end up getting enough embryos that they ever would if they owned her 100%. And she's 100, there's not 100% guarantee. She's not a perfect cow, but she's really predictable. And Quail Valley has got a lot of calves in the pipeline. This cow is going to end up having 50 to 100 calves by the time she's done. But there's a cow right there that the breed can hang their hat on. And like I say, if you want to own her outright, that's great. Completely control the genetics. But small breeders need to start thinking about, we push these bulls, go buy a bull, spend all this money on a bull, and then try to sell semen to pay for them. A cow you're buying for the production value, and you can take a cow like this and 4 or 5 guys and girls can go together and buy her, and they can take her and one person can control her and maybe get the natural calf off of her every year. And with IVF, everybody can get enough embryos. And with that said, she's not a heifer, so you know how many embryos she's going to produce, and everybody can get their equal share and get a lot of things done real quick. So there's a lot of opportunity in today's world that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago, Casey, that you guys have got, and pool your money together and kind of do some things. And that's a cow that I expect she's going to do fairly well in this sale. But there's a lot of opportunity for small breeders alike to own a cow like that. And with that said, all our numbers are in the catalog. Daryl's numbers in the catalog. He's a consultant. Daryl is our guy that arranges all our hauling across the United States. He'll transport the cattle for you. He'll line out other trucks going different directions, and he's not in it himself personally. But call Daryl if you got questions too, and he can help you. Look at the cattle if you can't be here. Look at them. You can bid online, or you can call Daryl and he can bid. Trey is here. We got several other representatives that work with us, but Brad will be here if you want to talk about the genetic side of the animal or the phenotype. Brad's got a great eye for cattle and knows animal production real well as too. So, any of us will help you, and just give us a call.
Sounds good. All right, I appreciate y'all guys.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much for coming out, guys.
All right, guys. We appreciate y'all. We'll see you. We'll see you here
Thursday,
Friday, 2:30 on Friday. It all starts.
Good deal. We look forward to it.
All right.
Thank you very much, Brad.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Mr. Hood.
All right. See y'all later.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Casey, that's going to be a really good sale. A lot of opportunities in there. What do you have next on the agenda?
On our agenda, let's check and see what we got going. Let's see, add to stream. We have our big sale coming up on June 24th at 7 p.m. It'll be that Friday at National.
Yes, sir. We got everything videoed and everything pictured this week. We're going to have them out as soon as our Miss Katie Fields has done all of our picture work and shots. As soon as she gets all that stuff prepared, she'll have it up, and we'll have it on smartauctions.co. And that'll be June 24th after the National Junior Heifer Show is complete. We'll have it at 7 p.m. that night. It'll be going up on the site. But we'll have those heifers right there from about Sunday all the way through till Friday night, folks. Y'all can come by, look at them. We're going to have them about 5 or 6 miles away from the show facility. All you got to do is get with one of us. We'll go out there. We'll have some people coming in on Wednesday and Thursday that can chauffeur y'all out there and look at them. They know the cattle, and they got them all clipped up. They're ready to go. And man, there's a really, really good set of females. And then we're going to give you an opportunity on a couple bulls here to purchase as well. And we're going to have that 038 cow family. This will be the first opportunity to buy any animals from her, the one that was the High Point female 2 years in a row and reserve national champion 2 years in a row. This is going to be her first offspring coming out. This is really exciting. They're really complete, really balanced. They're not going to disappoint you. They've been on feed, weaned off here. We got some of them halter broke, and wow, they're coming on pretty fast. When y'all look at the videos, you study them, because there's a lot of opportunity all the way through, and these calves will be eligible for that $5,000 futurity. And then I'm really excited too, Casey, about giving that straw semen away on Copperhead to every class winner. That's going to be pretty cool. Getting those genetics out there. I think a lot of this bull, we pushed him really hard. We're sending a lot of semen to Paraguay, Ecuador. Got a big shipment hopefully going out to Australia this week. This is going to be really exciting. But then the set semen we just about sold out of all the set semen, so we're going to have to get some more processed this week. It's been a really good turnout for people buying set semen on him. Gosh, these calves won't disappoint you. So just come out, give us a shout, and we'll be glad to take you out there and show you through the calves. Some of them will be in our show strain. They'll be haltered over there. And then some of them will be 5 or 6 miles away at this other facility that you can go look at them in some traps, see them walk around, move around, and be your next show winner. And all the papers are ready to do that validation. As soon as we're done, we got till the 30th to get them validated. So we'll get that next morning. You can take the cattle home with you from the show. If y'all wait around Saturday morning, we'll load y'all's calves up you buy or bull, and you can sure take it with you. And we're really excited about Grandview's animals. Tideland's coming in strong with a heifer for us. And just a really, really nice set of females, Case.
I'm excited. I finally get to be off Friday. I had 30-minute school Monday through Thursday, but I just confirmed that I'm getting off on Friday. So I'm excited. I'll get to make the show and get to be there for when the sale goes down.
Well, Dane sure put you to work. We'll all be getting tired by then, so we'll be glad to put you to work then.
I'll be fresh, ready to go.
That's right. What else you got going on?
Well, I just hope tonight's episode was educational for everybody. I know I learned a lot. EPDs is a deep dive to go down, but definitely something that we need in our breed and something that we can use to, benefit our future cattle that we have in our operation. We can kind of mold it to how we want to use it. A few of the days coming up. I'm sorry.
Just remember, EPDs is just a tool. So it's a tool for certain things to help you out, look at certain things you're trying to improve on your herd. So, it's just a tool. It's not, there's certain things, your criteria you're trying to improve on, look at it, see which way you need to go. That's what it's there for, as a tool.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it boils down to a lot of us raise really good cattle. A lot of us know we have good cattle. But if you don't put a number to it, and the people you're selling to aren't able to look at your cattle and see what you see, aside from you just, you having a type and kind.
Exactly.
If you raise, awesome calves that wean off great, or if you raise an animal that has tremendous marbling, no one knows unless you have those EPDs or those genomics to back it up.
So. Right. What else you have?
A few of the important dates. We'll just kind of run through the important dates real quick. June 24th at 7 p.m. we'll have the Pittsburgh Cattle Opportunity Knox Sale. It's volume 4 of this sale series. It'll be held at smartauctions.co. Like you said, we got our videos and pictures coming soon. I know Miss Katie just sent over that ad that we're going to have put up soon. It looks awesome. I'm excited for that sale. There's going to be some tremendous animals. And then, just like Mr. Mr. Richard Hood said, the Coal Valley Farms Elite Heifer Sale and Maternal Cow Herd Dispersal will be in Blocksville, Alabama, June 10th, 11th. And we all come together in Texarkana for the 2022 National Junior Heifer Show there at the Four States Fairgrounds. And like I said, everybody, I'm excited that we're getting able to help out our juniors and give out a straw of semen to all the class winners of the show. I can't wait to see those offspring here in a year or so.
And also those ballots came out yesterday for the National Board of Directors too. And I'd sure like to be able to represent the Western region. And if you got some questions, I'd appreciate your vote. But if you got some questions, you got some things that you want done, then please call me, and I'll make sure we make an attempt to work as a team and try to get those ideas that you have presented to the board. So I'm here to represent the people of my district, and I look forward to serving you. So I appreciate your vote.
Not many more people out there that'll support the Great Breed like you. Also, just like Richard Hood said, you're going to be doing some hauling for the sale, right? For the Quail Valley sale?
Yes, sir. I've been gathering them cows all day today from the Texas region, the ones we're going to haul over, and then I'll have if you want to buy a semi load, I'll have a semi trailers there. If you just want to buy a 32-foot or just buy one, we'll get it back this way to wherever you lived, or I'll have a trailer going all directions. So we'll get whatever cattle you buy, we'll get it delivered to you.
Yeah, and with gas prices right now, nobody wants to haul a trailer down the road. So give my dad, Mr. Joe Fisher, a call, and he will do the hauling for you.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's only $5 here in Texas. So
yeah, cheap here.
Well, God bless everybody. Thank you all for stopping in and learning a little something along with us. And going out saying then.
If you don't talk about it, be about it.
There you go. Well, like I say, God bless, and everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Thank y'all.